Hey everyone, it's Eldon again. Welcome back to another episode of Will It Live Again? We're going to see if we can fix something else up today just for the fun of it. So, we are this is going to be part two in how to rebuild the two mantle Coleman lantern. So, in the last one, we disassembled everything. In this one, we are going to go through the process that I use to clean everything up. Am I an expert? No. There's a lot of guys that know a whole lot more about doing this than me, but this is a process that I've developed as I've gone through this hobby, and I get great results. I like them, and it lets me have a good time. So I'm going to show you the processes that I use to clean up all of these parts. So we'll flip the camera around and get started. So here we are, back at the workbench. First thing let's sort parts out here according to how and why I need to clean them. Now, that might sound funny, but we have different things that need to be cleaned different ways. For instance, my piece of glass and my metal cage aren't going to be using the same process to clean them. I don't need to take the rust off of my piece of glass. There isn't any. I need to take the rust off of this cage. But I don't need this to be shined up and clear and pretty with glass cleaner like I do this. So everything needs to be broken up in different groups according to how we're going to clean it. So I'm going to start off with the very easiest things are going to be things I am going to clean with dish soap and water. And those are going to be the tank right there called the fount. Often we're going to clean the glass up. Not that, that'll go somewhere else. And we're going to clean the vent or the cap up. Another thing that we'll clean with soap and water is this little handle knob that goes on the main fuel valve on the thing. And I think that's everything in my pile there that needs to be cleaned with soap and water. So these are going to go into a separate pile. I'm going to clean them. I don't think I'm going to waste a lot of time showing you that. I'm going to show you the soaps that I use. So I have two different ones that I really like. That one and this one. So this LA's Totally Awesome Cleaner is available at the dollar store for $1.75 or $1.50 a bottle or something like that. I've stocked up on it. It's great for tons of degreasing and general purpose stuff. I do like this Dawn Power Wash. It's the Spray Dawn. And it has one particular use that I really think is important, and that is that it dissolves soot that accumulates on the inside of these lanterns. Let's see if we can tell here. Yeah. See the inside of that black powdery stuff in there? That is partially burned fuel, and it's kind of oily as well as being dirty. And not all soaps, interestingly enough, will cut it. But this Dawn Power Wash in the spray bottle does an exceptionally good job of cleaning that off. And I like to use that on my glass globes too, because it does an exceptional job there. These globes, a lot of times I'll find them that are so sooted up on the inside that you can't hardly see through them. And that Dawn Power Wash will actually take that soot right off. So I'm probably wasting a lot of time here, but those are the two products I'm going to use to clean up these four main pieces right here. So let's get those out of the way, because we don't need to have them in our face while we're doing that. Get those big pieces put back there. Okay, my soap pile. The next thing is I have a lot of pieces that have a lot of fuel residue on them. And that's going to be a lot of this mess in here. Don't need the paper tag. really just about everything in here I'm going to run through the carburetor cleaner bath, and that's going to include this burner assembly. So this also has a lot of soot on it, and interestingly enough, the carburetor cleaner cleans most of that off too. It just doesn't work well on things like glass. So when I'm talking carburetor cleaner, let's go down here. I'm not talking about spray carburetor cleaner. I'm talking about this stuff that comes in gallons, because I can put it in there and it soaks for a long period of time, and it will dissolve almost any oil or grease-based product. So that's what I'm going to put all of these pieces in, and I will soak them, probably soak them overnight. And that gets 99% of it. Once in a while I'll have to throw something back in there, but I don't think on this one that I'm going to have to. So we're going to put that in the carburetor cleaner, and that kind of leaves me with my other big cleaning job, which is the rust. Okay, rust is one of those things that most people find it's difficult to get rust off of things. But I've found a formula that we use, that I've started using, that's an exceptionally good rust remover, and it's relatively inexpensive, and it doesn't hurt anything. I mean, if I did overexpose myself to it, it might damage, but I stick my hands in this stuff all the time, and that is my soaking bath right here. Oh, looky there. I still have an old pair of pliers soaking in there. See those down there? They actually have been in there for several days, and they probably didn't need to be, but they'll be all right. So this bath right here is something that I make from 4 different ingredients. So the first thing obviously is water. The second thing is a citric acid mix that you get in Walmart at the canning department. You know, where you're putting food into bottles and canning it. I don't even know what this is used for, but it makes a great rust remover. So I'm going to use the citric acid. I don't even understand why you do this, because we're going to use what's called cleaning soda, or washing soda. It's very much like baking soda. Now the weird thing is, you have an acid and a base, and they react with each other, and you think that that would take away its ability to be effective, but for whatever reason, they work fantastic together. And the last thing we're going to do is put a little bit of dish soap in there. Now, my formula is not very scientific at all. At first I heard you want to do this with about 1 liter of water. I found that it doesn't need to be that diluted. So I'm going to use, there's probably 3 quarts of water in here roughly. So I'm going to add that to my mix that's already existing, because I need more of it. I want more depth in my tank. So there's my water. Try to get my citric acid going here. You know what? I forgot to open that. I'm going to do that off camera. I'll be right back. Here we go. All right, there's our citric acid. So it comes in a powdered form, interestingly enough. So we're going to sprinkle that all over in our mix there. Now here's the fun part. I'm going to use about, so we had probably 1.5 cups, 2 cups in that container there. Excuse me. Yeah, that'd get to you. Don't breathe it. All right, we're going to put in about, that much washing soda. And we'll let the reaction happen. You really probably shouldn't be breathing the fumes of this stuff. I'm sure it's not really great for you. But I want to stir that because I want those things to mix up really good in there. I don't know how long it takes to get that reaction done. I don't know that it even matters. But there, got it mixed up. All right, now you put a little, maybe a teaspoon of dish soap in there. Why dish soap? Remember this big important word, because dish soap is a surfactant, and you need a surfactant in your rust removal. Don't ask me why. Don't even ask me what it is. I don't know, and I don't care. I just know that it works. All right, so here we have our surfactant in our rust removal bath. I know it has something to do with making the water smoother or something like that. I don't even understand all the total details, and it doesn't matter. But anyway, I will just tell you that this makes an extremely effective rust removal bath. And what I do, we're going to take our parts. That will actually clear up after all the bubbling and reaction stops happening, like it was before I started there. So let's grab our parts that we need rust removed off of. And it's pretty much, so these do have some kind of finish on it. The thing that I absolutely love about this rust remover is it tends to take the rust off without removing the other finishes. So I'm literally going to just throw that in there overnight, probably let it sit overnight. Now, these won't sit all the way down in there. I was trying to find myself a big enough bucket. Actually, I think I just found a big enough bucket. Ta-da, that bucket will probably work. I may pour a bunch of this into my other bucket and soak those things so I get them all working at once. But anyway, that's what I'm going to do at this point. So back to my discussion on that not taking other finishes off. I can actually, if I wanted to, dip this tank in there and leave it for several hours, and it will pull off those rust spots right there without destroying the paint or the decal. But that's kind of a touch and go situation, and I don't really want to do it on this one. But here's another place that I've used it. Once I go in there and clean this with soap and water, these places right here where the porcelain has chipped off, there's rust there. And I can soak this whole vent cap in there, and it will eat the rust away and leave the porcelain. And that's a really good combination for me with the type of restorations that I'm doing. So that's probably going to go in there as soon as I wash the soot off of it. So that's kind of where we're at here on the chemically cleaning stuff. And after that, we're going to have to go into the mechanical cleaning part of things. So I'm going to get all my things in the appropriate chemical baths, get soap and water cleanup done on those and see what I need to do there. And then we'll be back with you probably tomorrow as I start pulling this stuff out of the chemical baths and doing the mechanical cleaning on it. So here we go. I will be back in a few seconds for you, probably 24 hours for me. Red flag, red flag, red flag. Don't pay attention to what he just said. Watch the rest of the video before you do that to your lantern. Okay, let's throw in a real quick clip here after these pieces have come out of the soapy water in the kitchen sink. So you can see we got the dirt off of them. They're looking pretty good. This thing, I could dip it in the rust remover, but I think I'm not going to. I'm not seeing enough there to alarm me, and I think I'll be okay. I can see down in the bottom of the tank there. And it's got a little bit of rust, but I don't think it's going to be a problem. So anyway, my glass cleaned up fantastically. Let's see if we can get it. There you go. I can see the ghost-like Pyrex emblem and the Coleman emblem on the other side. There we get it against that orange maybe. Ta-da! Anyway, that cleaned up beautifully, and I'm done with that. I'm going to set it aside so it's somewhere where I won't break it. Got those done. I cleaned up the handle. I told you when we were cleaning that up that the aluminum plate would fall out, which of course it didn't. Anyway, I solved that problem. Just took some compressed air from my blower nozzle and blew it in there, and it actually blew the thing right off. So anyway, those are apart. Here's the real thing that we need to talk about. Oh, incidentally, that's that pair of pliers that was sitting in my de-rusting bath, and that's shows you the power of being able to get rust off of stuff. Once I take some steel wool and wire brush to that, that's going to look nice and shiny and pretty. And it was very rusty when I threw it in there. So that's what we're going to try to accomplish here. So this vent has cleaned up very nicely. We got all the soot out of the inside of it and everything. But you can see we still have some significant amounts of rust in there. Now I could leave them, they're not going to hurt anything, but I have the power to derust them, so I'm going to derust them. These spots here, interestingly enough, see how they're symmetrical around there? What those are places underneath, which you can't see here. There you go. Where that mesh spacer vent was spot welded to the very top of the cap. And for whatever reason, they tend to break stuff loose. But anyway, we're going to throw this in the derusting bath and get that rust off, and then we'll treat it so that it doesn't come back. So that's going to be the next step here. I'm talking too much, of course. That's my specialty. All right. There are our parts in the carburetor cleaner bath in the basket, so obviously you can't see them. This is our vent and our collar are down in there. Not our vent, our cage and our collar are down in there in the derusting solution. And we're going to throw the vent into the derusting solution. Oops, didn't cover good enough. But there's a solution to that. I'm just going to give myself a 2x4 after I drop my camera in the derusting solution. And I'm going to prop this end of my bath up until it covers it like that. Now you know life's greatest secrets. All right, I'll come back. We'll be back tomorrow and pull some of this stuff out of the different baths that it's in and clean it up. All right, hasta la vista, kids. Red flag, red flag, red flag. Don't pay attention to what he just said. Watch the rest of the video before you do that to your lantern. Well, here's a bunch of our parts after a good overnight soak in the carb cleaner. Let's go. This is the cool thing. All I gotta do is hose this stuff off with the water and it cleans off 99% of it. So let's get the water turned on. Alrighty, here we go. Bunch of freshly cleaned parts. At this point, I'll bring them in here and dump them out on the workbench and blow them off with a hose and wipe them down so they get all the water off of them, and then we'll be back. Okay, so here's all our parts after we've just run them through the carb cleaner overnight and washed them off and dried them. If you look closely, you can see, remember all the green residue that was on everything on these pieces? Now it's all gone. Well, that is gone off the outside, but it's also cleaned that same stuff off the inside. So that's got us in a good step forward there. The next thing we're going to do here is clean these up, and I'm going to use steel wool on most of them. So we'll start that process here shortly. All right, so I pulled all this stuff out this morning. This is after work today. I'm back here in the evening. I'm going to try something on this. As I pulled this out of the cleaning solution, the carburetor cleaner, it's been sitting in now for a day. I grabbed hold of one of these air tubes here and the thing unscrewed. So I'm going to give it a shot, see if I can get these things apart. I've got a piece of rubber here that I'm going to use to protect them while I grab them with the pliers, to try to prevent the scarring them up and things. So we're going to try that. I'm going to put you on camera here, and then we're going to move into that process. And then I'm going to show you how I clean these parts up and make them look nice here. So I'm going to pause the camera. We'll be back here in just a second. All right, I think we're ready to go. So let's see what we can do here about getting these things apart. Glasses on. Which one was loose? Not that one. There we go. So see, that was pretty simple. Sometimes just soaking them in the different solutions will clean up just enough stuff to release those. I suspect that since that one was that simple to get out, that this other one's not going to be that hard either. So let me get a hold of it with the rubber here to protect it. And we'll just see if it'll break loose on us here. Ta-da! This is that simple. It really wasn't hardly in there. All right. So, come on, baby. Obviously, it might take a little more effort here. No, there we go. Coming out. Now, normally I can get this little cap here to unscrew from these two, but I doubt if we're going to have any luck with that. I'm not getting anywhere that way. And again, I don't want to go any farther if I don't have to. However, getting those two out of there should allow us now to unscrew this out of that top air manifold's what I call it, because it distributes the air into the tubes. So there we go. That got us all apart. Out of curiosity, I wonder if anything loosened up here. And that would be a no. But we'll be fine. That'll get us where we need to go here. All right, so we got our parts all cleaned up. Now, 2 or 3 things I'm going to show you here. I have taken these parts and cleaned them up on my wire wheel, on my bench grinder, but that changes the finish on the the cast parts and stuff like that, because that wire wheel is hitting it thousands and thousands of times as it goes around. So plus you got to have a wire wheel and a grinder, which not everybody does. So I'm going to show you the more basic thing. It actually takes a little more time, but I like the finish that it gives me and the way things look when I'm done. And that is to use steel wool. So basically I get by with 2 different, I don't know if you guys knew this, but there's different grits, for lack of a better term, of steel wool. You can see the difference in the texture of these. The one on this side over here is much coarser than this one. And they do serve different purposes. The coarser one will get harder stuff off, but it also has the potential of scratching things. The finer one usually will get stuff off, but it doesn't really scratch things up and leave definitive scratch marks in them. So I like to start with the fine stuff and just see what I can do. So let's take this valve, for instance, right here. I just like to wrap it around there, get a hold of it, and see what a little bit of rubbing will do on it. Yeah, there. Look at the difference in that. So you can see this over here is slightly tarnished. Now our tarnish is gone on that part, and that's really what I'm after. So I'll work through the whole thing and just see how the steel wool cleans it up. Once in a while I'll come to something that doesn't clean up well. Look at that. Doesn't that turn out pretty? Get you to be able to see the brass there. That's what I'm after on these things. Is this a functionality thing? Nope, this is an appearance thing. So you can make your lantern run just fine without doing this step. But part of why I do this is because I like to make them look nice. So we'll get through this one, and the others I'll kind of do off camera. But You can just see how much that changes the appearance of them and makes the things, to me, look new again. And that's kind of what I'm after. And you can get as serious about this as you want. I actually have polished the brass on some of my lanterns that I'm really trying to do a nice job on, because I have all the equipment to polish the metal. And that looks really cool, but it's not authentic. Maybe this isn't actually authentic as a restoration process either, but like I said, this is a common lantern. It has very little real monetary value. So it's just, we're doing it for fun. And I'm not trying to do something that, with concern about its ultimate collector value. These are kind of collectible in whatever sense the guy finds them interesting. So, but on the hardcore collector market, they're not going to have any significant value. So I don't really care what I do with them as long as I don't mess them up. I'm trying to make them better. Alrighty. Now, when I get to that point, I'm going to take the air nozzle and blow it out, because I want all the little steel wool fragments out of there. You can see them on my hand. They're building up right there, and that can happen down inside. So, there you go. More sound effects. All right. So there we go. Now we have, I should get it where you can see it. Now we have a nice little cleaned up Coleman valve. Excuse me. So I'll set that aside. Oh, excuse me. All right. Now we'll work into these other parts. So I'll be back. To change brands or something. Excuse me. All right, try this again. So now we're at the point we've showed you how to do one of them. I'm not going to go through every one of these on camera. Here's just an example. So see, I'm working on that one with the real fine stuff, and it's not cleaning it up super well. So I'm going to step up to the more coarse steel wool here. And that's going to take off the bulk of this residue that's on there. And it's not doing as good as I'd hoped it would. So, what we got to understand is the black marks that are on this piece are different from just the soot that's been on everything else. They're partially soot, but they're also burned on there, and with a lot of temperature applied to them. And so it is more like carbonized chunks on there, and it's harder to get off. So I may likely take this one to my wire wheel on my grinder. And I think that's probably what I'm going to do with that, and with this piece, and with these little burner tubes right here, because I want them cleaned up to where they look really nice. So we'll do that on those. I'll set those over here. So we're going to be back now, and actually this generator tube is a lot the same story, because it takes the bulk of the heat in a lantern right there. So this finish is very difficult to get off. So I think I'll take that to the grinder. Here, let's mess with the pump for just a little bit and see if we can get it, because as you can see, it's different kinds of metal. It's not brass here. Excuse me, although some of these are. But this one's not. And that right there, I'll bet it is once we start polishing on it. So let's just see what we get. I like to kind of support this, close into my hand there, so that I'm not trying to catch the edges of it with the steel wool. And it helps to clean it up a little better. So I don't know the exact finish on this piece. It is brass underneath there, but it's either blackened purposefully or it has turned black over the years because it's a little different alloy of brass. But we'll just clean it up. it being black makes a nice contrast to the other nice shiny parts that are on things. So there we go. Got that cleaned up. I'll kind of clean up the shaft here, which really doesn't have too many problems because it's hidden and it's got oil on it a lot of the time. So we'll just get any crud off of it that might be on it. There we go. Now we've got ourselves a pretty nice little presentable piece there. Looks like I don't really need to do anything here. So I think I'll be happy with that one. Put it over here in the finish pile. Actually, I'm going to blow it out real quick too. Okay, I'm going to be back here in a minute. There's several of these pieces that go inside and are not actually very dirty. So things like these, I'm not going to spend any time on cleaning them up. There's another one. Another one. All these things, like I said, they're going inside, so they really don't need much work done on them. The other pieces, yeah, that cap. Well, I can see a little bit of weirdness on it there. Let's pull out the steel wool real quick and see what happens with that. So if you look real close, you see that, how it's clean, but that's rough on that surface right there. And I suspect a little corrosion. So let's see what some steel wool does to it. Interesting. Okay. So it's now shinier than it was. The bulk of the roughness is gone, which will be where that nickel finish should be pulling up like that from the rust that's gotten underneath it. So that helped that one out. We'll do different things like this. Here's a steel nut that I can use the steel wool on that all day long, but I'm going to put it over here in the wire wheel pile because the wire wheel makes short work of that. This piece here doesn't need clean because you don't see it, or doesn't need polished anyway. All the other pieces I think I need to work on. This one right here, let's do it. It's kind of a unique deal because remember, it has that little hair size right there, wire pricker right on the end of it, and I can't even see on my camera. There we go. Come on, focus camera. Anyway, it's got that little wire pricker on it we got to be careful of. So what I like to do with it is hold it and pull the steel wool off of it like that, rather than trying to go back and forth, because I don't want to hook that little wire pricker on there and pull it back towards me and bend it and break it. So see, I'm not even going clear out to the end now, but I am getting this little shaft polished with all of the carbon and crud off of it there, which is what we're really after. So still some pretty heavy deposits on there. Let's get a little more aggressive with our coarser steel wool and see what that does. Oh yeah, baby, that's taking it off. Nice. Okay. I'm sure you can see that really well as I'm bouncing up and down like that. Flip it around. Here we go. Back this way. Okay, now we got that thing all nice and cleaned up. There we go. Looking pretty good. Okay, so the rest of these things, simple cleanup job with a steel wool or the grinder. Not grinder, wire wheel on the grinder. And then we'll be back. All right, have fun waiting for us. We'll see you in about 2 seconds. Okay, let's look at a couple of these parts here. So these are the things that I've shined up, and they look all pretty now. So don't need to worry about them too much. This is something that this goes down inside the tank. It's fuel pickup tube, so it will never be seen. So really what I'm trying to do is get it clean. I don't care how polished it is. That cap polished up quite nice. It still has the patina of use on it, but that's okay because that's part of what you're doing when you're collecting stuff and restoring it. This is the top nut. These things seldom clean up really beautifully unless I take them to the wire wheel on my grinder. And then it takes off, I think this has nickel plating on it over the brass. And it'll take all that nickel plating off and leave it brass, which is not bad, but it's, again, not original and doesn't have to happen. So we're going to call that good. Here's one that changed quite a bit. So now we have that pretty polished brass on there all the way around. It'll look really nice, but look at this. Get close enough in there. You can see that steel handle coming out there. Can't see it real well, but it's got rust on it. So I can clean that rust up a couple of ways. I can wire wheel it, or I can take this part and throw it in my acid bath. And I think that's what I'm going to do. Just get that acid coming off of there. So that's what I've gotten to right now. Now we're going to jump over here on the wire wheel and start cleaning up these parts. And tell you what, let's just take a part over there and I'll start cleaning on it and you'll get the general idea of what we're doing. And then I'll just do the other stuff off camera. So here we go. I have this nice wire wheel on my grinder. I like to use those ones that come with that gold colored plating on them because they seem to just work really well for this kind of stuff. So here we go. Get her turned on. Back down there. So what we're going to do is work our way around the thing, cleaning it up so it looks like that. And essentially that's what we're going to do all the way around it. So we'll get that stuff cleaned up and leave us all nice and pretty and shiny there. So if we get up close here, you can see the marks that the wire wheel leaves in there. So it's not a pretty and smooth finish anymore, which is not factory. If I was trying to do a real careful restoration, I would go through some greater lengths. I'd soak these things probably in some vinegar, which actually takes the most of this off. And then I'd use the steel wool again. But anyway, now you see what's going to happen. So we're going to shut the video off and I'm going to finish up all these other parts so that they look like that. Alrighty now. Don't those look so much better? Yeah, I've got them all cleaned up and pretty looking, and that's where it's going to go. So this little piece right here actually goes inside of there, probably the other direction actually. It's part of the process of vaporizing the fuel inside of that generator. So that's got those pieces cleaned up. Now we're going to move on to the cage and the collar. So I'm going to get them out of the acid bath and we'll clean them up a little bit. All right, so here's what that collar looks like once it gets out of the acid bath. Not very pretty, is it? Kind of not much of an improvement. But I haven't even dried this off with a towel yet, so let's dry it off a little bit and see what happens here. Because a lot of that black looking residue is going to come off either with the towel or with the steel wool. Kind of just depends on the piece of metal and, you know, several different conditions, of which none of which am I an expert. So, all right, there we got it. Yeah, maybe a little bit lighter, but let's take some steel wool to it now. So the finish on here was a galvanized finish on a smooth piece of metal, so I don't want to use my coarse steel wool because this will tend to put scratches in it. So let's try the fine stuff and see how it comes out here. Get where you guys can see me. There we go. That's looking a little better. All right, see that? So that is significantly better and could be okay for what we're doing here. However, this is one of those places I want to step up the game a little bit. So I am going to clean this off with the steel wool, and then I'm going to take it to my polisher and I'm going to buff it out so that it looks a little nicer than that. So I'll go ahead and do this and then get it over to the buffer, and we'll let you see when we come back here. And I've still got to get the cage out, and we'll work on it in a little bit too. Let's take a quick look right back here. So you're going to see on here the power of that acid bath that I'm soaking these things in. So if you can look in there, you can see places where there was rust, but there isn't anymore. And that's one of the things I'm excited about. There you can see the label on the thing that says Coleman Model 220E. Maybe you can see that on there. But anyway, that was completely hidden before. But anyway, now we're ready. I'm going to take it to my polisher and we will polish this thing up a little bit so that it looks a lot nicer. I could do that. I could put some spray paint on here, which is what I'm going to do on the cage. But I like these things polish up real nice, and I like doing that. You know, let's see if you can see. So right across there is a ridge that was kind of odd from the rolling of this thing over. I'm also going to smooth that out so you don't see that ridge as much anymore. And maybe kind of all the way around the thing, look for those sorts of things. Just one of the little tweak things that I like to do to these things. I don't see anything else really that stands out in your face like that one, but we'll get that one out of there. All right, we'll be back. All right, the process I'm going to use to polish up that collar involves two different steps here. So I'm going to use this pad here, which is a sewn cotton pad. The sewn refers to these rings that are circled around it that holds it together and keeps it from fluffing out. And I'm also going to use a Tripoli compound on it. And that's going to kind of do the roughing end that I need to do here. Then I'm going to switch over to a loose buffing pad like this with my final, let's see, White Rouge polish right there. Polishing compound. That's what I will finish it up with. Yeah, I'll kind of show you just a second here how I do this. It's really a two-handed process, and I don't need to dig into it in detail for you. So let's see. First, we'll get some compound on the wheel, which we do like this. Then we're going to start the buffing process. So see what a difference that's making in our surface there. So that's what we're going to do all the way around the thing. Have to be careful because it gets quite hot. It'll burn you if you're holding your fingers on the back side of where you're polishing for sure. Anyway, so I'm going to go all the way around this with that. Then I will switch over to that other wheel and do the final polish, and I'll show you what we've got when we get back. Well, here we go. So it's not perfect, but it's way, way, way better than what we started with. That's what we're after. If I was trying to do a more in-depth restoration, I would get out some different wheels on the buffer and grinder and go harder into this thing to try to get it to polish up better. But for what we're doing, I think that's going to look nice. There we go. All right, next will be the cage. We'll have to get it out of the acid bath and clean it up, and I'll show you how we're going to treat that a little bit different. Okay, here's our cage out of the acid bath and washed off with water in the sink. Now we're going to use some of the little more aggressive steel wool and just give this the little scrubbity-dub-dub all over and see how it cleans up. I'll do that and be back. Alrighty there, doesn't that look much better? All nice and shiny everywhere. And that's just cleaning it up with the steel wool. It looks great. The problem is these things are made out of mild steel, and there is still some of the galvanizing on there, but where there's not, this is going to start rusting again. I could protect it with an oil or something like that, but I want to do something a little more serious than that. So I've started using this stuff. So this is a high heat Rust-Oleum that's rated literally at 2000 degrees Fahrenheit. It is called flame proof on some of these. This one doesn't seem to say that, but it's a ceramic coating. Anyway, it's a silver color. When I finish spraying this thing, it's going to look like it was freshly galvanized, basically. It's not perfect finish, but for what we're doing, it's perfect for me. So let's take this little bugger over to my paint booth, my high-tech work area here. Right here. Isn't that a nice handy-dandy paint booth? Yep. All right, and we are going to spray paint that thing with our high-temp silver. So, here we go. I want to get a good coating on there. This stuff actually dries quite fast, and so I'll be able to flip it over and put the coat on the other side here very shortly. And again, I'll do that off camera. I don't need to bore everybody with all of these sweet little details. There we go. One coat on it, and we're ready to let it dry a minute and put the second coat on. And we'll be back, and that should get really close to wrapping us up with all the cleaning and prep work for this thing. Oh yeah, I forgot this one important part. So let's get our vent out of there. That rust should be basically dissolved by now. I think we can hit it with our steel wool and get it off of there. So I'll take it in the house and wash it off, and we'll meet you back at the workbench. Red flag, red flag, red flag. Don't pay attention to what he just said. Watch the rest of the video before you do that to your lantern. Okay. Just when you think you know everything, and you've never made a mistake in your life, you realize once in a while you're maybe not perfect. So I just pulled this one out of my acid bath, and lo and behold, the acid actually etched the porcelain. I've never seen it do that before, and I've done this before and had success with it. So I'm going to be putting notes in the video. Don't do this. I'm going to have to find a better way to get rid of the rust off of the vents. This is interesting to me. Gosh, I thought it was perfect, and just got something thrown. I don't know how to deal with this. Man, I can't tell my wife. She will never believe that I did something that wasn't perfect. Or wait a minute, no, that's not how it works. Anyway, never mind. You get the picture. Don't do this. I like that we got the rust off of it from around the porcelain. But there was literally green dust residue on here. I have never seen that happen before. Amazing. And on the inside, we got most of the rust cleaned up, but it's interesting because it impacted this porcelain here, but it didn't seem to do anything to this down in here. So I don't know what the deal is, but until I wisen up and learn a little bit here, I'm not going to recommend that you do that again. Anyway, you could have gotten by with just maybe steel wooling that. I'm going to oil this in here anyway. But yeah, live and learn, I guess. There you go. Well, boy, wrecked my whole week. I thought it was perfect. Too bad. All right, so we're going to carry on. I think right now we're pretty well got everything ready to go back together. I'm going to wrap up the final details of checking all my parts, and we'll see, and then we'll wrap up this portion of the video. All righty, I think this is where we're going to wrap up this video. Got all of our pieces all cleaned up and ready to go here. Things are looking really good, with that exception right there. But I did go through here. So I learned a lesson back when I was learning to be a finish carpenter. Somebody told me, if you ever make a mistake, make it look like you meant it to be that way. So I tried. I actually took a map torch, which gets really hot, and heated this thing up to where it was almost cherry red. My hope was to remelt the porcelain to some degree and let it then re-solidify there. And it did a little bit, and it didn't obviously bring it back to full gloss or anything, but I think it looks better than what it did. So let this be a lesson to you, because it's definitely a lesson to me. I'm not going to put any more vents into the acid bath like that. Anyway, we'll carry on. That's why we're working on a cheap lantern, and it doesn't really matter in the long run how we end up. There's our globe. It turned out really good. Oh yeah, there's the pliers that we found soaking in the acid bath that have been there for quite a while. I've wire wheeled them. I'm showing you this to give you a taste of some other things we're going to do on the channel, because I like to restore old tools, and that acid bath comes in super handy when I've got a really rusty batch of something to clean up. So there we are. We'll wrap up this episode. Sneak peek. Oh, little den there. Yeah. We'll wrap it up, and we will see you back here with the next episode of the third part of this 3-part series. And now we're going to show you how to put all this stuff back together to have a nice, functioning, good-looking lantern out of the whole deal. So have fun, boys and girls. I am. I hope everybody else does too. And if you want to dive into some of this stuff, I hope it's been educational. We'll talk to you on the next video.